don't listen to me, don't listen to my science, whatever health objective you're seeking, try this for just 1 month and see what happens. Don't do it because I am lecturing to you, because that's not going to last. If whatever your health reason is, whatever you are seeking in that equation, try something different, because you've tried all the other crazy things, and try this crazy thing for 1 month and see where you are. If it works for you, it works for you. If not, don't, because people are never going to do it because, they heard some crazy cardiologist talk to them. Because these are long life, long, this something that it has to come. That's why I actually, that's what I'm going to open the questions with is why do you want to be healthy? Don't let me tell you why you should be healthy, kind of thing. Yeah.
I think we are almost live.
We are live.
We are live.
You're live?
Yeah, right. but what you're saying is, it makes a lot of sense, because people, the number one question every patient asks me every day, every time is, doc, what can I do to be healthy? Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. Or, and it's like, what do I eat?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to open the introductory slides with, is to not necessarily as to what we eat, but why do you want to be healthy? Don't let me tell you why you should be healthy. You have to have a reason. Yeah, and off that reason, you gradually build. Yeah.
So I think we can start. We are already having a lot of people.
I'll follow your lead. Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome everyone to our Facebook Live. And we are also on Zoom today. This is a series of talks that we're doing, which is kind of going towards World Heart Day. World Heart Day is on the 29th of December. And this is, we've been doing videos on that. We've been doing talks on that. And today we're going to do a talk as a part of the series towards that. It's a great pleasure actually to introduce Dr. Koushik Reddy. He is the Director of Interventional Cardiology at the James A. Haley VA Center. He's the Director and Treasurer for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is actually a very interesting and an apex body of lifestyle medicine. He's over there, he holds multiple posts. He's the founding co-chair of the member interest group. He is the founding co-chair of the cardiology member interest group. And he's the founder and president of the plant-based lifestyle movement. But most importantly, I think his biggest designation is that he's my friend. And more than that, he's my attending. So when I was in the US, Dr. Reddy was one of the first people who taught me how to operate, how to get access, how to do angiography, how to do intervention. And I can say as a fact that during that time, he used to be very unhappy. He was very unhappy in the cath lab. I wouldn't say unhappy, but he was always very fidgety in the cath lab. He's like, I'm doing all these things. I'm doing interventions. I'm saving lives, but there is something missing. There is something missing. And over the last few years, I've kept in touch with him. We talk at least once a month. We exchange messages on some way, shape, or form. And then I think he found his passion of preventive medicine, of going and trying to see, can I prevent disease? How can I reverse risk factors, diabetes, hypertension? And over the last few years, he's gotten fairly involved in that. He's very passionate about it. And I would like to welcome Dr. Koushik Reddy to Voice of Health. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Samir, Dr. Gupta. And wow, thanks for those kind words of introduction. And again, a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us through Zoom and through Facebook. And great initiative that you and your wife and your organization has taken up to get the word out in preparation for the World Heart Day, and also for future. And yes, going back to the few introductory words that you used, you could say that I was frustrated. It's almost like I actually remember that day. I'm just going to open the discussion with why am I doing this? It's because it's very unlike Dr. Gupta and I are both interventional cardiologists. And for those of you who don't know what an interventional cardiology is, it's a subspecialty within cardiology. And if you train in the American medical system, it is continuous 17 to 18 years of training. If you go through school and college in the US, is 17 years of training after high school. right? That's how long it takes just to say that I am ready to start my own work. So that's a painful long training. So why are the two of us whose entire career life is spent and training is spent in the deep dark dungeons of a lead shielded cardiac cath lab, why are we doing this? Me waking up on a Sunday morning and he on a Sunday evening, trying to get the message out to the community and say, hey, you know why do you guys want to meet us in the cardiac cath lab? There are better places that you could meet us at. So we both love the art of the procedure. We love the dexterity of the procedure, but we in the heart of our hearts, we also know that majority of what we do, both inside the cath lab and outside the cath lab as cardiologists, is preventable. Majority of them. I would say even close to 70 to 80% of what I do for a living should not actually exist as a disease in 21st century, but it does. So that was the frustration that Samir is alluding to, is that I voiced multiple times to my fellows, and he was one heck of a good fellow, and he went on to achieve a lot of great things, and went back home to do the good work over there in India, for which I'm proud and thankful. Um, so that's what led to, as a personal journey, is that I really need to reinvent myself. So that personal journey became a passion as I understood the science, and fairly became comfortable with communicating with that passion. And then over the course of past couple of years, that passion has now become my life's mission, is to get this word out to as many people and as possible, without any interest. I'm not doing this as a business. It's just call it a labor of love. So that's a couple of words about who I am and where I am and why I do what I do.
I think
And
that's
yeah,
that that's really important, because see, both of you are cardiologists, and we sit here right now, talking about how we can prevent heart disease. And with COVID coming forward, I think this is the need of the hour. I think what COVID has done, it has made people realize that if you have any of these metabolic disease factors like, diabetes,
yes.
high hypertension, heart disease, the risk of mortality, the risk of somebody dying from COVID is definitely higher than if you don't have it. And that's where preventive disease, I think, is the need of the hour. So, and it's wonderful to see two interventional cardiologists, coming forward to actually say this, because, people have this theory that, if you're intervention, if you're doctors, you want to do procedures, but that's not the case. I think the message here is let's prevent.
Oh, absolutely. So to get that, to live that message. About 2 years ago, I don't. I probably I should have brought it with me. The white coat that I wear at work has a little phrase that I actually coined under my name. It says, "I have a carrot and a stent. You pick."
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so it's I'm not just saying. I don't want people to think that somehow carrots are going to prevent heart disease, but it's a metaphor to the paradigm of what I want to bring to the world. So that being said, I have no disclosures. This is not a financial gig that I'm trying to do. This is like I said, it's a labor of love, and just like we do with any of this social media or community-based presentations, those of this is not this is for educational purposes only. We are not here as your doctors taking care of you with the patient doctor privilege. So be mindful of that, and please consult with your physician before making any dietary or lifestyle changes, because there are a lot of nuances as to how this should be guided and tailored to each one of us. And the main objective, right? The main objective is to ask ourselves, why are we meeting here, right? Why on a weekend from literally across different corners of the world, we are making an effort, you are making an effort as to why, right? This is my message, is that if this PowerPoint, which I think is a good, beautiful PowerPoint, this PowerPoint somehow at the end of this discussion has to translate into a personal commitment. It has to somehow, you have to find the value in it, and hopefully myself and Dr. Gupta, we will be able to do some meaningful justice to that. And the second one, if you perceive this as some kind of a monotonous lecture by some crazy cardiologist, that lecture, we're hoping that somehow you take something out of it and it becomes a lifestyle change. Otherwise, the way I see this, it's pointless unless my PowerPoint translates into your passion to be healthy and to stay away from a guy like myself and Dr. Gupta. right? Because think about it, right? What we have become, as advanced as he is and I am in what we do, I joke now, does the MD next to my name mean manager of disease? Right? For 17 to 18 years that he and I spent continuously training, all that we do is we manage disease. We don't. So that's another extremely important distinction I would like for the audience to note right at the upfront of our presentation, is that there's a huge difference between health and maintaining your health and managing your disease. Completely different things. So that's the whole objective, is to how to learn how to maintain health. So another thing is, we all want to be healthy, right? We all want to be healthy. That's why we're meeting here. But the question is that how do we look at health? What does health mean to any one of us? So believe it or not, the World Health Organization has a beautiful definition. And it's not just a mere absence of disease or infirmity. And, at the risk of sounding a little pompous, I'm going to say this, which is, I am 50 now. I just turned 50 in May. And, this past weekend, I was able to run 14 and a half miles. And so far, knock on wood, not diagnosed with any medical condition. I'm not taking a pill. So does that necessarily make me healthy? The fact that I am physically healthy, is that all there is to human health? And turns out it is not true. And I agree with it. So a beautiful definition is, it's a complete physical, mental, social well-being. And we could even add the component of spiritual well-being. And it's not just a mere absence of disease or infirmity. Just because somebody does not have a diagnosed disease, in a totality of health, does not necessarily make that person healthy. So how about this? The word healthy in itself, for discussions like this, can be broken down into heal and thyself. How about the root of all of our languages? In Sanskrit or Hindi, the word health is swasth, right? This is actually, for the healthy, I just broke it for discussion purposes. But if you look at the root of Sanskrit language, the word swasth is officially a conjugation of swa as in self, stha means consciousness. So majority of health is us being self-conscious. Right? As we often say in India, life is a circle. Circle of what? Right? From a purely health perspective, if I were to put every one of you on the spot and ask you one simple question, openly tell me why you want to be healthy. Right? And you write an entire chapter on it, or a book about it, as to why you want to be healthy. And the other person does the same thing. So no matter how detailed and descriptive our answers are, all of our answers will fall into two and only two broad categories. One is quality of life. We all want to be healthy because we want to maintain a quality of life. But the other side of the coin of that circle is longevity. We also want to live as long as possible while we are maintaining as good of a quality as possible, right? But although I'm showing these two entities as in two separate boxes, but in reality, they don't exist as two separate boxes. They are completely intertwined, like inseparable, like the two sides of a coin, and goes kind of well with our, Indian/Hindu philosophy, if you want to call it, that the life is a circle. But what I want to take you through is a journey of the past century, where I want to convince you that the life that we all want to live should look like a box. So using those two qualities.
Mention one thing to all the people who have logged in. People have been messaging me who know me, that they have questions. So after every few slides, we'll take up some questions. I'll interrupt you just like this, Dr. Reddy. But
Sure.
Please put questions on your on the Facebook comments group or on the chat section over here of this thing of Zoom. So yes, please continue.
So those two qualities, right? What I want to take us through is a quick journey of the past 100 years using those two qualities. If anybody disagrees with those two things, please type it in. I would love to have a discussion that if anybody has a third reason as to why they want to be healthy besides quality of life and longevity, I would love to hear that. But using those two quality of life, I'm going to draw a graph here, quality of life and longevity. And we're going to go back exactly 100 years ago, 1920. And it may come as a shock to most of you because it did when I first learned about this. But in 1920, life expectancy at birth in India was 27 years. An average person in India died 27. If you live to be 35, you lived a long life. I'm not saying everybody died at 27, but that was the average in 1920. But during that short life, the quality of life dwindled down rapidly because we didn't have access to pretty much anything that we take for granted today. Clean drinking water, public sanitation, access to vaccinations, universal vaccinations, access to antibiotics, access to a hospital, literally pretty much anything that we take for granted. So for that reason, and if you kind of look at the way the graph looks now, it looks like a triangle, right? Now, because of all these advances that have happened over the past 100 years, in 2020, an average Indian's life expectancy is around 65 to 67 years. But this is how our life looks like, right? Because what's happening is that very early on, childhood obesity, including children, it is rapidly rising in India. And then high blood pressure. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know a household in India that I know, my friends and family, where somebody is not taking a blood pressure medication.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's so common having, every, I think, second or third person actually we meet has high blood pressure.
Absolutely. And then high cholesterol, right? It's rampant in India. And again, extremely important. Culturally, I don't know, because I'll be honest with you, open disclosure, I literally left India a week after I graduated medical school. So I never practiced medicine in India. So when I say these things, this is based on my observation and reading. I'm not pretending to be some expert in Indian medicine. I never practiced there. But what I know from reading is that male sexual dysfunction, right? Male sexual erectile dysfunction. The reason it is important to a cardiologist is it is a blood vessel related disease for the most part. There are some other reasons, but in most people, and India is officially per capita is now the world's capital. There's no country on the planet that has more male erectile sexual dysfunction than India does. So that is a very concern because it's a quality of life issue, right? And no coronary disease. I was talking to, I was on a Zoom call with my med school buddies. My best friend is actually my brother kind of person, and he's a busy cardiac surgeon. First thing this morning, what he was doing Monday morning, he's operating on a 42-year-old man with a massive heart attack with the pumping capacity of the heart reduced to 15%. We don't see that in this. It's
Dr. Reddy. The youngest person I have operated on was 19.
There you go. I never seen this, and I've been practicing medicine in this country, in the western side of the world, for about 25 years, but we rarely see that kind of stuff. And stroke is also become very common in India because of a combination of high blood pressure and diabetes, chronic kidney disease, cancers. Almost all major American cancer organizations are setting up shop in India at an unbelievably large scale, because the cancer prevalence in India is growing up so look at this. So because of this, our life, yes, we are living longer, right? Compared to 100 years ago, yes, an average person, a peasant in the village is also living longer than his ancestors just 100 years ago. But what my concern is, the reason that I step out of the cath lab and do this is that I see people, while they're living longer, they're dying longer. Having a heart attack, from a preventable heart attack at 40 and leaving your family widowed and your children parentless, to me is dying longer. Being hooked up to a dialysis machine that you shouldn't be, being paralyzed and being bedbound from 50 on. Yes, you're alive because of the modern technology and doctors like myself and Dr. Gupta, but all that we are doing is that we are helping you die longer, right? So what I argue is this. Humanity now has a unique luxury that we did not have for almost all of our existence except for the past 100 years. Even in the era of COVID, right? People no longer die of two things that killed us for eternity. One is lack of food. The second one is infections. We pretty much conquered those two. Yes, once in a while we get hit with a pandemic or two, but in a bigger picture of entire human existence and evolution, we no longer die of two things that killed. For the most part, still people die, maybe let me rephrase it. We no longer die in as large numbers as we used to. So we have that luxury, but yet we are dying of these diseases that should not even exist. So what I am arguing is that at least can we try can we all try sincerely to make an effort to live a life where the graph looks like this, where we maintain a good quality of life for as long as possible. At any given time, let's say I only live for 20 years and die like this, right? That would look like a box. Let me put it here. So what I'm saying is that, is it possible? Let's say 100 years, and then I die short. So the concept that I'm arguing for is that at least can we make a sincere effort to live long and die short.
You know, Reddy, you were talking about this the concept of longevity, and I
Yes.
think that's really important because you want to stay healthy also.
Yes, absolutely.
Longer.
Absolutely. While you live longer, you want to live. That's why the concept of the two words that I like using is it's just not the lifespan, but you also want to focus on the health span.
Yeah. I think everybody's going to be very interested as to what are the things that they can do to reverse diabetes. I cannot tell you how prevalent it is in India, in our patient population, with everything else. And I think people are going to be very excited to see what you have to say.
So this is so now what's going to happen? This is so and now we're going to get into some of the little data. Don't get confused with the graphs that I show here. I'll walk you through this. So what ended up happening at the turn of the century, heart disease has now become the leading cause of mortality in India. Infections are no longer the leading cause of death in India. Heart disease is now the leading cause of death in India. And what is very concerning is, like Dr. Gupta and I just mentioned, is an Indian develops heart disease 10 years earlier than the rest of the human race, right? And then if you look at the number of deaths, number of people who are dying due to heart disease before age 70, right? The entire Western world is 23%. In India, it is 52%.
That's a huge number. I think for people
just look at
that's
more than double.
Yeah, that's more than double compared to the world and what's happening in India.
So when you say cardiovascular death, you also mean vascular death. So
exactly.
That's so much branch.
Yeah,
because it's both heart disease and stroke and other vascular diseases. Because to me, yes, we compartmentalize into stroke and heart, and it's just one system. We divide them into multiple specialties, but to me, from a vascular biology, it's just the same system. Right. Now, another thing that has happened in a very short time is 50% significant, tremendous progress. I think one of the best in the world is that 50% reduction in deaths due to malnutrition and infection. As a consequence of that, just like anywhere in the world, Indians are living longer. But now when we live longer, now comes the comfort of affluence, industrialization, and the lifestyle patterns have changed. So as a consequence, 60% of the non-communicable diseases are related to cardiovascular death. And this is not uniquely in urban areas like Mumbai, Delhi, and Chennai, that kind of stuff. It's actually in rural areas also. It's very concerning. And the cost is enormous. This is already passed. We are 5 years after this. This is an older slide. The estimated cost was it was going to be $250 billion by 2015, right? And look at the number of deaths even in India, right? 272 in India and 235 for 1 lakh people compared to anywhere in the world. So India has the highest population adjusted deaths due to cardiovascular disease, right? And here is what is shocking is that I left India in 1995, and then soon after, if you really look at from 1999 to 2010, the number of lives lost due to heart disease and strokes and other vascular disease has gone up by 59% in India. Right? And the same problem is actually in all over the place. It's a 14-fold increase in urban areas and a 7-fold increase in rural areas. And what is expected is that this is going to go up by even more and primarily one of the risk factors, like, we were just talking a few minutes ago, high blood pressure. High blood pressure has gone up by 138% in a very short period of time.
So I think what you're talking about rural India and urban India is that, it's important to remember that heart disease is not only a disease of the rich, it's a disease of everyone. The vascular problems happen in rich people, poor people, middle class people, everyone gets heart attacks, everyone has these problems.
So it is so this is easy, right? What I just showed is that, sitting here in the comforts of, an American life, and you could argue, oh, look at this guy. He's constantly, all that he's doing is finding fault with India, right? So because it is the cheapest, the meanest, and the easiest things to do is to find faults. And nobody's perfect. But the real question is why? Why do we have such a burden? So the reason I'm putting it this way is that if we identify as to what the problem is, and I'm going to build into those slides as to how can we correct this.
Yeah.
Is this before we go there? I want to show, I want to walk you through this. Don't get intimidated by this, especially for the non-medical audience. So smoking, everybody knows smoking. If you have smoking, this is your risk of heart disease. If you have diabetes, if this is your risk of heart disease. If you have high blood pressure, this is the risk of having heart disease and strokes. And here, if you have high cholesterol, it is this. But this is where it starts getting very interesting. If you add 1, 2, and 3, high blood pressure, diabetes, and smoking, look at the risk. If you add all 4, look at the risk. If you add all 4 and add a little bit of extra weight, look what happens. I lined up in such a way because this is what we're going to talk about. This is what's happening with all of us. And one thing that we don't talk much, especially maybe it's changing a little bit because I've been talking to a couple of my friends who are psychiatrists in India, think that our Indian culture is not very open. At least now it's better than when I grew up in India, is that we don't talk much about the psychological and the social attributes as to how much impact they have. Just look what happens if you add psychological factors. The risk of heart disease and stroke just exponentially goes up, and yet we don't talk about this.
So the psychological factors.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the stress that people have in everyday life, if it overburdens them, then it increases the risk of heart disease by 200 times.
Yes, that's exactly.
Yeah, phenomenally crazy.
Yeah, and this is from this inter-heart study. This data is written in concrete. This stood the test of time. This is an old paper from 2004. And the reason I feel so passionate about, especially when I'm talking to friends, family, or an Indian audience, is that we are the land of mindfulness. We are the land of stress reduction. We are the land of yoga, and yet an average Indian, there's another beautiful paper that I sent it to a friend recently. The young IT professionals in India, the amount of stress that they are dealing with, and also working odd hours because of this globalization, and all of these are factoring in. All of these are factoring in, but sadly, we don't talk much about this as a contributor. We only talk about the first 4, but when it comes to this, I think we're still doing enormous amount of injustice. The reason I put it there, we're going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to this slide one more time to make another point. But here, let's start with smoking. As of today, close to a third of Indians are still smoking. Yes, some of us who live in the cities with some of sophisticated contemporary life, we don't see this. But even if you go to the outskirts of the cities or even the villages, a lot of people, the household, the BDs and that kind of stuff, close to 30. And depending on which state you go to, especially if you go to the Northeast, close to 65 to 70% of people are smoking. And the concerning fact is that the trend among Indian youth towards smoking is rapidly rising. So smoking is, again, my friendly advice to all of you, whoever is listening to this presentation about nutrition and lifestyle, it's going to go into that direction. But if you're smoking, this is a good time to kind of pause and say, you know what, let me focus on, because if you're smoking, none of the advice that we are going to give you is actually going to work. That's how powerful smoking cessation is in terms of heart disease and health. The next one is blood pressure, which is big in India, huge in India. It's because India is an exception. India is a unique exception unfortunately, not in a positive direction, because India is one of the only countries that I know of where the prevalence of high blood pressure is actually going up. It is expected to cross close to 213 million people by 2015. As of now, almost like we just talked a few minutes ago, is that 1/3 of the Indian population has high blood pressure. And it turns out, as we'll show in a few slides, that majority, literally, between Dr. Gupta and myself, we close to have probably 50, 60 human years of experience in cardiovascular medicine. We can count on literally 2 fingers how many times we have seen high blood pressure that is purely due to genetics, right? Diabetes, huge. It is officially, in my opinion, is the world's capital. Diabetes. It was never like this. It was never like this when I grew up. It was never like this when I was a medical student in India. And over the past 2 decades, it is doubled in urban areas and it's quadrupled in rural areas. Although this is extremely important, I want everybody to pay attention to. This is not some kind of an urban disease only because we have access to Pizza Hut and Domino's in Delhi and Hyderabad, right? It's because it's also happening. If you look at absolute numbers, although they appear a little low in the rural areas, the proportionate growth, the percent increase in rural areas has quadrupled. Close to 70 million people in India have diabetes and over 100 million diabetics by 2030. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the tip of the iceberg, there are close to 80 million people who are waiting to become diabetics any given year. I mean, this is just, if this explodes this way, it's just in terms of the youth and the potential loss of life, as in the way I look at it, it could be a national security issue for India if we lose this many young people due to a preventable disease. How about cholesterol? Ignore the graph. Don't look at the graph. It's confusing, but the statement is very simple. Only 20% of India has normal cholesterol numbers. Only 20%. Very concerning. Overweight. Trends are increasing like I have never seen possible, never imagined possible. Truncal obesity. If there's one point about obesity, I want everybody, some of you may already know this, please don't just go by BMI if you're an Indian or a Southeast Asian, because there is actually a condition, people call it TOFI, TOFI, stands for thin on the outside, fat on the inside. So we joke around this, pretty much almost all of us, right? Unless you're, really, 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 really keen on this, most Indians have a little bit of a pot belly, right? So extremely important. So, and that pot belly itself and the risk of, what we call as metabolic syndrome is different for India. So we should aim for a BMI even lower. Sorry. Yeah.
Question which has come up on the chat by Jason. He says, I'm curious to learn the reason behind these surge in numbers, especially in India's rural areas. The presumption of vegetarian diets, relatively active lifestyles, and good social structures would work in their favor, you would think. So let's
again, I will give you the examples that I know personally. So the disclosure here being that I never practiced in India, but my family is still in India. And one example of, it's a great question, by the way, Jason. And question is that now the village that I grew up in, people live in the village, but guess what they do now compared to when I was a kid? This literally from the city, we used to get maybe one bus if it came to travel to the city a day. Now there's continuous uninterrupted transportation. So the entire labor force in India in that village is now moving to the city for day labor. And when they go, their lifestyle is very different. They bring him more money. The food that they eat is different. The alcohol consumption, the same village where we did not have a liquor store now has 5 liquor stores. So Indian villages, at least, again, correct me if I'm wrong, this is just not me living there. This is hearing my family, hearing my friends in my part of, where I grew up in India, is very, very different than what it used to be. And then speaking of Indian, quote unquote, vegetarianism, we're going to come to that. It's an abomination of food. I'm sorry, don't take offense to it. I'm just being as honest as I can speak here, but we're going to come to that about what Indian vegetarianism is when we come to the food part of the discussion.
There was another question we just got on Zoom by Mr. Sanjoy Pasricha, that the figures that you've mentioned for diabetes, for the chances of heart attack, is it for people with uncontrolled diabetes or even for people who have their diabetes under control?
So if you have diabetes, this is a very good question and a very good point off of that slide. The way we treat diabetes is that if you have diabetes, we treat you for all practical purposes as if you already had a heart attack. That's the risk of diabetes. So the key is as much as you can, for a vast majority of, please do not settle for my diabetes is controlled. Can I potentially reverse this? Meaning that, can I maintain my glucose and hemoglobin A1C? And even if you want to be technical about it, talk to your doctor, and even my glucose tolerance test. Can I normalize this and put the disease in remission without the need for pills and insulin? And that is quite possible. So again, to be very clear, diabetes, controlled, uncontrolled. Yes, controlled diabetes tends to have, but again, what does control mean? How about this? Just since you asked the question, I want to answer it in a, without using a lot of medical jargon, that when we try to lower the sugars, we have at least 2, if not 3, beautifully done large trials that made it to the guidelines, that if we try to make the numbers low using pharmaceuticals, the event rate actually goes up, especially because but that doesn't happen with nutrition and lifestyle. So as long as you're a diabetes, we treat you as if you already had a cardiac event.
So basically, you're mentioning that with diabetes, when people get treated with medications and it's under control, the risk is still higher. But if you're
Absolutely.
managing it with your diet, then definitely the risk by nutrition and diet, then the risk actually lowers down of having a heart attack. So I think that's going to be something everybody's going to look forward to on how they can actually start,
Well, what I tell my patients is, this is what I might tell my patients. Look, if you're a type 2 diabetic, you're taking 4 medications, you're on insulin, and the numbers are controlled. That's good. Compared to, very high glucose, your risk is now a little lower, but you're still at a higher risk compared to who? Compared to a non-diabetic. So can we do something going forward gradually? Can we put your diabetes into remission or / quote unquote reversal? Is by weight loss, eating healthier, putting exercise into pattern, sleep, all the various, components of lifestyle medicine. And then people who do this sincerely can come off. I've had literally an entire clinic full of patients who we put their diabetes into remission just by, nutrition and lifestyle. And then when we do that, and then you plug that number, the way I show that is plug the numbers, the new weight, the new risk factors, the new blood pressure, the new cholesterol numbers into what we call as the pooled cohort analysis. And then it gives you the risk. Hey, what was your risk of heart disease 10 years ago? And what is the risk of heart disease now? Because you're no longer a quote unquote a diabetic. So that's the way is to meet the patients where they are, because this is not going to one approach fit all. We have to tailor to each patient a little differently. But again, long-winded answer. But yes, as long as you're a diabetic, even when well controlled, your risk is still higher to have a heart attack compared to a non-diabetic. And that's why the medical word that we use is diabetes is a cardiac or coronary risk equivalent. So going back to one of the things that I don't know, some of you may know this, take a tape measure and measure around your waistline, right? Because this is a big problem in India, truncal obesity, even for those of us who are ideal body weight and who don't have visible obesity, is the waist circumference at the level of your belly button should not exceed the half of your height. I'm going to repeat this one more time. Take a tape measure and measure your waist around the belly button. That measurement in centimeters or inches should not exceed more than half of your height. If it does, it doesn't matter how many marathons you can run. It doesn't matter how many bench presses you can do, because that basically tells me that there is fat deposition in the mid part of your body. And fat deposition there itself, for all practical purposes, without going into the basic biology into it, it pretty much works as an inflammatory organ. And this is becoming a rapid problem in our children. A pooled analysis of not one, but 52 studies in 2010 showed that the obesity in Indian children is now almost at 20%. Right? And this has happened in a very short period of time. And within Indian society, the problem is even rising rapidly amongst Indian women, where by 2 years from now, literally less than a year and a half from now, it is expected that close to half of Indian women would be overweight or obese.
So Dr. Reddy, I think there was a question about truncal obesity again. Do you have a slide later on which shows how to measure it?
I don't think I do, but I'll be more than happy. So again, I want to repeat that. I'm sorry for not having that picture. Probably I should have. Is to just a very simple, a tape measure. Take a measurement around your waist, not at the level of the hip, but at the level of your belly button, and write down that number.
Umbilicus is right.
Umbilicus, exactly. Around the belly button umbilicus, you measure that, and that measurement, whatever measurement that you get, that should not be more than half of your height.
So in inches, right? So to give an example, if somebody is 70 inches tall, let's say,
Yeah.
and they're measuring it. If
And you
their
get
waist is at 36 inches, that's more than half of their height.
36, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that,
That,
right?
that basically telling that you have truncal obesity. Yes.
Right. Okay. Just to
And 70 inches is 5 feet 10 inches. So if
Yeah.
you're about 5 feet 10 inches, then your waist should not be more than 35 inches.
Exactly. Because this is an extremely important risk factor, especially of Southeast Asian gene pool. And very, actually very few people pass this, and we're not paying attention to this. And also,
that's very important. I think the audience here needs to understand that most of us are, even if we feel that we are slimmer, are actually more than half of our height. And even I think that's what I'm thinking in my head, that even my waistline is probably more, and people don't call me fat. My point over here is that I think all of us need to do this today. If nothing else, this is the biggest, I think, one big take home message here from this slide would be, please measure your waist, see what inches come on your waist, and then see what your height is, and then have a reality check that if you think you are fit and if you think you are healthy, let's stand back and start working. That's not true. So I think that's a very important point.
Absolutely. And another,
get to the meat, because for reasons of time, let's try and get to the meat of what our audience is actually looking for. What can they do?
Okay, so a couple of things I want to just cover about, physical activity is really poor in India right now. And sugars, amount of sugars that we are eating is just, in my opinion, it's just bordering on criminal. None of this is our food, folks. This is not our food, right? But like, this is like, look, 30% growth every year, 14,000 crores in sodas and this Coca-Cola and all these companies in India. And this food, right? When I grew up in India, if somebody showed me this, I would not have recognized this as food, because we did not know what this was. But now everybody's eating this. This is not our food. It's traditional Indian food. We are so far removed from it. And then, like, look, this is one thing I want to spend some time on. This is extremely important. This is a survey of Indian children. A simple question was asked, but this is actually by some Indian research group. And what they asked was, what percentage of our children in India are doing this more than 4 times per week? Turns out 51% of our children consume fruit juices. Please, fruit juices are one of the worst things that you can do. Eat the fruit. We have no shortage of fruits in India. That's one thing. The thing that I actually miss the most, besides my family, about India, is the amount of fruits that we have. Every season there's a different breed. Enjoy the fruits, but not the fruit juices. Same thing. Carbonated.
When you say fruit juices, are you talking about fresh fruit juices? Are you talking about like
even the fresh fruit juices? Eat the fruit. We have this habit in India: take a fresh orange or fresh Mossambi, and then you squeeze the juice. But yes, it is better. Definitely, it's better than drinking Coca-Cola for breakfast. But eat the fruit, because by juicing it, you're removing the most important component of that food, which is fiber. As much as you can, eat the fruits, not the juices. But again, most children, I don't think they're drinking freshly squeezed orange juices these days. They're drinking all kinds of bottled juices. And then 21% of our children are drinking more than 4 servings of carbonated drinks, sodas, sweetened beverages. 20% of our children are eating a serving of ice cream more than 4 times a week. This is not traditional Indian food. If India now is seeing a burden of Western diseases, because we are eating like the West. Literally, that's how simple. We literally need to go back to our roots as to how we ate, how our grandparents ate, how our great-grandparents ate, because they would not have identified Coca-Cola as food. On top of this, oils, hydrogenated oils and vegetable oils. Please, just simply try this for about 10 days. Cook everything the way we cook. Everything the way we do not compromise on our spices, because we have the luxury and the blessing of having more spices in our culture than there are stars in the galaxy, right? So that's what gives the food the taste, not the oil. I'm not saying oils are intrinsically bad, but they come with a very high calorie burden. 1 tablespoon of oil is 125 calories. When you start cooking the onions, just saute the onions with water. Don't compromise on the spices. Another thing that you're going to learn when you don't use oil, especially Indian food, when you don't use oil, you will soon realize one, the food is tasting superbly normal without adding much salt. An average Indian is eating 147% a day more salt than what is allowed. No wonder why every household has high blood pressure.
So why don't you, can you just tell us, as you're talking about oils, this is the question everybody asks me, all my patients ask me, all my family members ask me, that what is the oil to choose? Like you're talking about hydrogenated fats, vegetable oils, trans fats. Can you talk a little bit about the oils? Which is the healthy oil?
If you want to use, I don't know how, again, having never, that did this in, I never cooked in India, but how readily available is the olive oil? Is it ridiculously expensive, or is it in the reach of an ordinary person? Can they replace their, if you have to absolutely cook with it? Is olive oil something that is accessible, a good quality olive oil in India? Is it accessible now?
Sonia, you're on mute. But yes.
It is accessible, but yes, it is more expensive comparatively to, the oil. The other thing, this slide is really fascinating because this has everything that we all love to eat. And the bhujia kind of comes back at me, and Samir is going to laugh about it. But, we all love all these things. And even when we cook at home, the concept, I think what people would have to here understand is the concept is avoid using oil. But using oil in our cooking is so ingrained in our system.
Okay, so I'm going to give a practical. I want literally everybody to try this. A good friend of mine and his wife, they live in Canada, but they're from my neck of the woods in India. They're Telugu people, and I want all of everybody to look at this. Please note down this if you want to type in the chat group, Samir. Gift of Life, giftoflife.org, or Gift of Health. One of those, yeah. What is Origins website? Yeah, Gift of Life or Gift of Health. I'm drawing a thought. I'm having a thought block. What they have done is phenomenal. They have hundreds of free recipes of Indian food, of all Indian, localities, different states cook differently, without a drop of oil.
That's a very important, I think, for people to know.
Yeah, trust me, look, although I live in America now, majority of our food that we
right? I think you have to put it again over there. Gift of Life. Yeah.
Giftoflife.org has a lot of videos, personal testimonies, and the practical tips to how to cook literally everything that we cook in India, from Kashmir to Kenya, right? Everything that we cook, all cultures, all ethnicities, how to cook those foods without a drop of oil. It's mind-blowing, and and a lot of those recipes are, and they also offer Arjun and Shobha Raipuri. They're good friends of mine. I mean, another brother of mine, kind of a relationship I have with them. And please try that. And it's so that way you're not trying to, oh my God, all of a sudden I have to eat like some American green, like green leaves for breakfast. Just basically how to learn to eat, healthy Indian, typical South Indian, North Indian breakfast without adding that much salt and oil. It's really nice. I hope, trust me, everybody's going to find that very useful.
What about like sunflower oil? What about mustard oil?
Mustard oil, that's very frequently used in India.
So again, my suggestion is that no oil intrinsically by itself, or no food the only reason I say to people is that if you have to use an oil, use it, but just be very careful. I cannot say if you use this oil, somehow your health is miraculously going to be better. Please don't fall for that, because all oils are liquid fat. The reason I say I learned to cook without oil is for one simple reason. 1 tablespoon of oil is 125 calories. This is one thing I want everybody to pay attention to, as to why people like myself are preaching or proposing to eat less oils, especially refined oils. But what Dr. Gupta is saying, that if your body consumes oils in the terms, actually eat the sunflower seed, eat the walnut, eat the almond, eat the avocado, but not their oils. Because when you refine oils, what happens is that you're extracting liquid fat out of them with a very high caloric burden. And people say, wow, but that has some antioxidants. Extra virgin olive oil has extra antioxidants. Then I say, well, trying to get antioxidants from olive oil, isn't it like trying to get your potassium from Coca-Cola? Because Coca-Cola has potassium. Does it mean that it's good for us? That's the way. I'm not saying, you should never, ever, ever eat oils, but be very careful because it adds too much calories to your food. Especially when the examples that we see here in this picture, all these foods, I used to be addicted to all of them, right? But especially these are all refined carbohydrates, deep fried in oil. What could go wrong, right?
Exactly. Every single item, I think
Yeah.
all the viewers, whoever is watching, is like, oh my God, we probably ate this a couple of days ago, or maybe just had it in the evening with the evening chai, and had some bhujia or had some biscuits. So
Look, remember, the way I want us to think back is that what did our grandfathers, great grandfathers eat for breakfast, right? They ate vegetables, they ate yams, they ate boiled peanuts for breakfast. I used to see this in the village. The village, laborers that used to work in my father's, farm, they did not eat all this high calorie food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They ate mostly like literally, lentils, beans, legumes, and some fresh sabji that's made at home, that kind of food. Call me crazy, but I eat, sauteed spinach and sweet potato for breakfast. That's another way to look at it. Don't let the popular culture hold your health hostage. Don't, because the guy who's selling you oils is not going to come and hold your hand when you are in the care of Dr. Gupta in the hospital having a heart attack. So everybody has to think so out of the box because the burden is actually dragging us towards the box, the coffin.
But
so you have to think outside the box.
Dr. Reddy, my patients ask me this every day.
Yes.
Doc, can I have ghee? I love my ghee. I want ghee.
Yes. So here is the question. So ghee is quote unquote clarified butter. The ghee has enormous amounts of oxidized LDL. There's a lot of data on this. The things that come up in India is ghee, coconut oil, milk, and what? I'm just going to put it out since you asked the question, right? These are the questions that I get asked all the time.
Yeah.
Just go talk to a friend in Kerala. Again, I don't want to, because this is more of a bi-directional conversation. I'm not going to get into the science because it's not a scientific presentation, but I'm trying to associate with stories and again, anecdotes, which may not be the highest order of evidence, but talk to somebody who's from Kerala and even yourself. Again, the best way to bring about these changes is not by any one of us doctors lecturing to you. If you went to a doctor with having chest pain and you're diagnosed with heart disease, and now you're told that your cholesterol numbers are high, all that we are asking is, based on the science and the way we interpret, is try something different for 1 to 2 months. Stop the ghee, stop the coconut oil, stop cooking with coconut oil, eat predominantly or exclusively a unprocessed plant-based food, and see what happens.
Can you talk a little bit about the plant-based food? Can we go to some of those slides?
Yep.
So here is a slide, another thing. So to think about plant-based, so meat intake in India, right? Again, Samir, you probably remember when you were a kid, I was a kid, we ate chicken maybe once every other week.
Yeah.
Now most families are eating some type of animal flesh for every meal.
Yeah.
That's not normal. And then we ask, why is this happening? Again, personally, my personal choice, I became a complete vegan. I open disclosure, but I try not to bring that bias. All that we are asking is eat the traditional Indian foods. There's no shortage of dals. There is no shortage of vegetables. There is no shortage of spices. So those are the kind of things. Lent, nut, beans. How many type of beans we have? Like, why are we not eating boiled chana with some cilantro and some fresh onions and a squeeze of lime for breakfast? Why is not that breakfast anymore in India?
Yeah, you're right. Now it's all,
I think we'll have that for breakfast tomorrow. That's for sure now.
Why is not a good portion of, that beautiful sweet potatoes and a fruit, not a lunch item, and with some nicely, some sauteed spinach, with some Indian spices and some fresh garlic. Why is not that lunch anymore?
Yeah.
Right? And nice part of dal with some bunch of vegetables in it, right? Okra or whatever vegetables that you put in it, and a nice homemade fresh whole wheat roti. Why is not that anymore? And then on top of that, no need for us to be consuming this much of fat, animal protein, and processed foods and refined oils and simple sugars. So every plate you have to think, and again, the details of how to put it, that's why I'm giving that website, Arjun's website. It's beautiful.
It's giftofhealth.org. We just checked it out.
Yeah, giftofhealth.org. Amazing couple, a surgeon. You can connect, the Indian audience can connect with it, because culturally, Indian people, that kind of giving you Indian recipes. They're also certified yogis and meditation and mindfulness instructors. Phenomenally brilliant people. And look up their website and use it as a guidance resource, because I can talk and lecture all the science, but like Samir is saying, the practical tips. How does somebody from his clinic go home and make a change for dinner tonight? So
the meat is not that healthy, because people want to eat meat for protein, right? I mean, they want to eat for protein, they want to eat meat for flavor.
Very good question. So this is the question that comes up very frequently, right? I'm glad you asked that question. So the minute I start talking like this to an audience, patients or friends, hey, where do I get my protein from? So how did we get here? How did we get to this culture across the world that protein means eating animal flesh? How did we get there? And there's no science behind it. There's absolutely no need. Yeah. Am I expecting that nobody should ever eat a piece of chicken? It's far from it. That's not what I'm saying. Is that, think about it. The very word protein is derived from Greek language called proteus, as in something that is important. So something that is important, something that is a biological building block of life. Without protein, there is no life. Do you think from a dietary point of view that is something that is going to be available readily, or it's going to be a rare item that we got to go keep looking for? It's going to be, protein is in everything. If you think about it, even in the wild, protein is biological transfer of energy. The only source of protein.
So in simple terms, like if we think about, like for our audience, in terms of a plant-based protein source, what would be the top 3 things that you would recommend? Like dal, lentils would be one, I'm guessing.
Lentils and beans.
Lentils and beans. What about soya? Like another very, like everybody's talking about soy. Yeah.
The soy that is available in India, the meal maker, we call them, right? That's what we call it.
Yeah, Nutri. I think they call it Nutri or something.
Nutella.
Yes.
No, that please, everybody in India uses that, but that's not the type of soy that you want to use. I don't know the type of soy that we use, like literally a block. It almost looks like paneer, like in a fresh soy. So the Nutella that we eat in India, it's actually dried, pre-cooked, and fried.
Oh, it's fried.
See, that's the point. I think that's where people have to understand that. Look at every item that what you're eating, right? So fresh food is always the best thing. Don't take anything that is packaged, right? I think that's
absolutely. The fresh soy that we get here literally looks and feels like a block of paneer. It literally exactly looks like paneer. Then you bring it home, you cook it the way, whatever you want to cook it with. Yeah, sometimes we grind it up and we make it into a little, chili, and we make it into, we cook all kinds of things. But yeah, I don't know if that type of a soy is available in India, but soy is another good source. But make sure.
Is that like tofu?
Exactly, it's exactly tofu, not like tofu.
That is tofu, right? Yeah. So
that is tofu. Yeah. So if tofu is available in India, it is a great resource. And just make sure that there's no added salt to it. Just it's nothing but a block of tofu. You bring it home, and you just need to look up some recipes. And but yeah, going back to protein is that
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the take-home message here is that dal, beans, and if we, instead of paneer, we can actually use tofu in a similar way and have that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then for the beauty with that doll is like, although it comes across, when an Indian says doll, it's kind of oh, monotonous. But we all know that. We all know that there are God knows how many different types of dolls we have,
Yes, that is
and also how many different types of beans we have,
right.
right? So
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. The variety, it's amazing. So I think we have again, we have a lot of choices. We just have to open our minds to eating more fresh food and
exactly.
find replacements of something that we're so used to eating, but find the healthier replacement or
Exactly.
alternative for that.
Yeah, yeah. And the best way, if one of you, anybody in the audience through Zoom or Facebook, the best way to explore all of this is not conform to some kind of a guru, because I don't come across like that at all, because trust me, I did not invent spinach and dal. Okay. This is not my plan. The, the plan should be yours. Hey, I have high blood pressure at a young age. I've seen my uncle, my cousins drop dead of strokes and heart attacks before they turn 50. I want to do something different. Do something different, right? Completely eat the cleanest possible way. Avoid the number one problem in India is avoid processed foods, avoid refined sugars, cut down on animal products, eat a lot of dark green leafy vegetables, learn how to cook them, lentils, beans, and vegetables. Try that for a month or two, go back, have your blood pressures checked, have your blood work checked, and have a consultation with your doctor and see where you are. And then your response to see how your body reacts should be a validation, not my lecture. Because if you just, if you conform to, oh my God, I have to follow this guy's plan. No, you have to follow your plan based on why you want to be healthy. So, sorry, go ahead.
Can we go to some of this thing? How can this be fixed? Yes.
So the thing is this, same thing in India, right? The problem is this, public health promotion is not so we need to literally flip this pyramid. So in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly go through this. How can this be fixed? So this is it, folks. So I don't have a magic pill. I don't have a magic recipe, right? Although we talked a lot about diet because kind of it becomes an important issue, but this is what we call the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. And our yogis have been saying this for thousands of years, right? Eat healthy, exercise, don't smoke, all right, or limit alcohol. India is now the world's leading consumer of single malt whiskey. Okay. Again, we just have to accept where things are, right? Stress management. Nobody does this better than us. People have been saying this in India, but we lost track of this. So this is the thing. So when I first joined American College of Lifestyle Medicine, it was kind of an interesting feeling. I said, holy crap, people have been saying this in India over thousands of years.
So,
And now,
yeah. So sorry, regarding alcohol, I had to ask this question, right?
yeah.
And you both are cardiologists, so please. It's all about, oh, one glass of a drink a day is fine. Having up to 2 in men and 1 in women. So what are your thoughts on that when we talk about
The whiskey one couple of times a week?
Yeah.
Okay. I want everybody to look this up. So there are a couple of things, right? So there's something called as moderation, right? So I said, what is moderation? What is like? So psychologists studies this. So they actually interviewed thousands upon people about various behaviors, not just alcohol, but multiple things. We say everything in moderation is okay. Everything in moderation is okay. So it turned out, specifically with alcohol, they concluded that what is moderation is that whatever makes a person happy is moderation for him or her. So a glass of wine may be moderation for Dr. Gupta, but a bottle of wine may be moderation for me. Right? so where do you draw the line? So there is another thing is this. This is a thing that's going to shock most of you. Okay, ready for this? Alcohol, I'm going to say this very slowly and very carefully. I want everybody to get this message. Alcohol is listed as a group 1 carcinogen. You can please look this up by the IARC, International Agency for Research on Cancer, right? Probably one of the most prestigious cancer monitoring body, if you want to call it. They list alcohol as a group 1 carcinogen, meaning what that means is that it is directly causal. Alcohol itself is a cancer causing agent, not by some other mechanism. So my argument is, yes, there is some epidemiological data that people who drink alcohol may have cardiovascular benefit. But in medicine and in statistics, we have something called as healthy user bias. Is it possible that people who habitually drink a glass of red wine on a daily basis are also doing 20 other things towards health promotion? Can we say the health is only due to alcohol? Especially when the chemical, when that product is listed as a group 1 carcinogen.
So,
So
is all alcohol the same, or is red wine better than the others?
very good question. So yes, probably red wine if you want to drink alcohol and you can't live without it. My suggestion is, knock yourself out with a glass of red wine. It's because it does have some antioxidants. But again, what Dr. Gupta asked is a very, very important question. When we say, is this good for me? The next question we have to ask is, compared to what? Right? If we have choices now. Compared to what? So compared to, single malt whiskey, probably, red wine, because of its some antioxidant concentration, it's good. But is it better than drinking a glass of water when you go to bed? No, it is not, because again, I go back to the same thing. It has been shown to be causal in multiple cancers. Again, am I saying to everybody that just drinking a glass of wine, you're going to die of a cancer? Less likely. The risk is very low, but it is listed mechanistically, it is listed as a carcinogen. I just want you to be aware, because if you drink alcohol, how about this? If you drink alcohol, drink mindfully, drink very little, but please drink it because you enjoy it. Drink it because you enjoy the company. Drink it because it's a birthday. Drink it because it's a festival. But please do yourself a favor. Don't drink it saying to yourself that it is good for you.
We actually have a question from Reddy, that is all alcohol equal, or is red wine better than the rest? So I think the answer is that, as you mentioned, red wine has more antioxidants comparatively compared to other, I think, alcohols. Correct?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And also remember, it comes with a sugar load. What I say to you, just have a handful of grapes. Remember, I never drank much, but since I got into the lifestyle medicine space 3 years ago, I quit alcohol. I haven't had a drop in 3 years, and I don't miss it. And again, all these things has to happen based on what your health goals are. What your health goals are. I found my health goals, I found my scientific goals, I did a lot of changes, and it worked for me. And all these changes, I can just only tell you the way I interpret science, the way we, majority of the guidelines are. But so this is the pillars, folks. This is how do we do this, is by doing this. So here I'm coming back to the slide. Remember I said this, right? Remember, every single one of them, we talked a lot about heart disease, smoking, cholesterol, every single one of these things that contributes to heart disease, smoking, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity. I bring this slide back because every single one of them, in majority of us, is a lifestyle choice. That's why I'm bringing this slide back.
So how do you reverse it?
How do we reverse it is that to be mindful. Number one, glad you asked that question. The first question, that you have to be acutely mindful of the choices that we are making, the behaviors that we are indulging in. No point, what I mean by mindfulness is that I'm not asking everybody to go home and go to an ashram and come back with a halo and a rosary in your hands. That's not the kind of, although that could be a very good way of mindfulness. But what I'm talking about is that there's no point in reluctantly taking 3 blood pressure medications and eating chaat and samosas with a crap load of salt in it the next morning. Right? That's the kind of granularity, meaning that every activity, every physical, emotional, and dietary activity, you want to ask yourself. The way I trained myself, now it's second nature for me. I used to 4 years ago, if I sat down, every meal that I'm about to eat, I literally used to ask the question, based on the science that I know, does this meal go inside of me and help me live longer and healthier? Otherwise, why am I call this concept digging our own grave with a knife and a fork. Don't do it. So how do you change it? You have to be mindful when you sit down to eat something, ask that question. Hey, I am the guy who's taking 3 blood pressure medications. I hate it because I saw my brother have a stroke with this. Then think about it. Think about the meal. Think about not exercising. Think about the smoking. Think about going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning because of a project. Everything matters. I'm talking a lot about diet, but every single one of those. How?
Vegetarians.
Yes.
So I think the important concept here for people to understand is it is just not turning into a vegetarian, but following a plant-based diet and keeping all parameters. And you're getting my point, right? That
Well, look at this. The way I look at this is
we're in a
vegetarian.
country where, if every majority of people are vegetarian, but their risk of hypertension is still extremely high. And every third patient of ours walks in with high blood pressure.
No, think about, the way I look at this is this, some typical South Indian meal, right? You wake up in the morning and you eat some, puri with some potato curry, right? And some chutney, right? Technically pure vegetarian. We use the word pure veg in India, right? Everybody with, so that meal, just look at the amount of processed carbohydrates, added fats, and salt went into that food.
So can we break that down? So when we say processed carbohydrates, we're talking about the puri part because it's been fried, right? Yes.
So again, I might. So also the amount of oil, and then the amount of salt that we add in our foods. That's why officially, according to the Indian data, an average Indian is consuming close to 140% of required salt, added salt in our food. What is shocking is only when I come to India, I see a salt shaker on the dining tables, even till this day in most households.
Yeah.
Is that true or not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not a single patient of mine tells me, yes, there are people, but here in America, the most salt gets added to the food because so many people in America eat processed food. In India, a lot of people are eating, but now on top of that, pizzas, right? Even especially in South India, when I go, right? Everybody's ordering biryani for lunches and dinners. I said, oh, this is like, we can't do this and expect to be healthy. You really have to be mindful. And then the same thing for lunches, right? Even when we eat little yogurt, everybody's sprinkling more salt into it, right? And then everybody's sprinkling more salt into it. And so because remember, if there is one thing besides smoking, I want everybody to hear this out. Besides quitting smoking, the lowest hanging fruit to lower your risk of cardiovascular disease burden is to control your blood pressure. And it's easy to be done. The data is crystal clear on this. It made it to the American College of Cardiology guidelines with class 1 indication and a level A evidence that that's how powerful it is. I think I have a slide here. This slide, I just want you to get a power of this. So that's why I'm going to, because blood pressure is such an important thing. Let's say Dr. Gupta and I invent a blood pressure medication. We take it to the FDA or Indian organization. What is going to shock your mind is that the requirement for them to stamp yes on our blood pressure medication if we show a mere 3 millimeter drop in blood pressure. But if you stick with a DASH diet, which is predominantly a plant-based diet and low salt, you can drop your blood pressure by up to 22 millimeters in 1 month of compliance. So when I say these things,
we have about 5 minutes more. We've been going on for an hour and a half.
Oh, wow. So
we will need to,
another thing that comes up is that, doc, the disease runs in my family. Even when the genetic risk is high, you can lower the event rate by 50%. Even when you have high genetic risk, if you choose to live a healthy life, eating healthy, not smoking, you can lower the risk by 50% for stroke and heart attack, right? So sleep, extremely important. Average Indian is not sleeping. I have a slide here. This is actually Fitbit data from India. An average Indian is actually one of the second most sleep deprived nation.
Really?
This is Fitbit data. This is not a randomized trial. This is not a peer-reviewed paper. So take it for what it is. This is Fitbit data, survey of 18 countries. India ranked the second most sleep deprived. Indians are sleeping 48 minutes less than UK, 32 minutes less than US. Especially now with young folks doing tech jobs to meet the timings and to I don't know, go up the ladder of corporate India, I guess, but it's coming at the expense of enormous health burden.
And we work on Saturdays too. I think that's a big part of the problem as well in India. We
Yeah.
don't get that lovely Saturday, Sunday weekend that we used to get in
Yeah.
the US. And that,
So again, in the interest of time, I'm going to stop here. But again, I'm available on social media. If there's anything, just shoot me a question. Depending on my time and availability, I'll be more than happy to answer. And then if this is of interest, we can probably set up a few more discussions like this to get the word out. But this is the simple 6 pillars. All of them are at a philosophical level, ancient and predominantly Indian in origin. So we should be.
Stop sharing it. We all talk and have a conversation.
no,
Yeah.
to sum it up, go on a plant-based diet. Basically, be mindful of what you're eating. Every meal that you look at, kind of understand that how much oil is involved in that, how much salt is involved in that before eating it down. In terms of protein sources, we get enough through plant-based foods like dal, lentils, beans, tofu.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to focus on regular exercise, focus on good sleep, quit smoking, limit alcohol intake to whatever extent we can. And of course, work on stress management. I think lowering our stress rates, which is a huge problem, I think, worldwide, but especially in India, we see it all the time. I mean, being a headache specialist, believe me, the amount of stress I see in people and the amount of anxiety I'm seeing in young people, it's scary. It's getting scary. So definitely, I think people, if we work on all these factors together, we can start lowering our risk of heart disease and diabetes. I think Dr. Reddy will definitely also get in touch with you so we can share with our viewers maybe a sample Indian diet of sorts. If somebody wanted to start following a plant-based diet, like, for somebody who has diabetes, maybe we can get in touch with you and then we can share it through your platform.
Let me share the resource now. There's, I gave you that one website. There's another website called PCRM, P as in Peter, PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. PCRM has a nice website with the resources. You can just go to PCRM Indian recipes. It automatically takes you to that link on the website. It's it's a US-based, Washington-based organization. They also have a branch in India. They're doing a lot of work in India, including Indian medical schools. They are going and teaching about plant-based diets. They have, so these two, Gift of Health and pcrm.org, has a lot of recipes. So that way, people who are interested, who see the value in this, can just dive in and start cooking Indian foods, the traditional, age-old Indian foods, not the refined junk that we are eating now, right away. Like, you can start with the breakfast tomorrow. So those are the two, for me, are the very reliable Indian-oriented recipe websites.
But Reddy, can you stop sharing the screen so then we can there are some questions I want to ask you, other people have also asked. Dr. Reddy, what are your thoughts about wheat, atta, which is like the whole thing, like, people are very passionate about roti, about atta. What are your thoughts about that?
Gluten based.
So gluten is bad only if you have celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. So there's a condition called celiac, which is absolutely a extremely well-established disease. And then over the course of past 50 to almost 100 years, there was a huge debate about gluten sensitivity. People said, oh, it's not even a disease, but no, it is true, gluten sensitivity. So suggestion, again, is to avoid gluten only if you have those two. Otherwise, but again, when you make atta, it becomes a processed food, right? So again, try to eat whole wheat, or also whole grain, right? Make ragi roti, we have this, in South India, we call them jonna. I don't know what it's called in Hindi. I don't know what it's called, but they're, same millets, they're all over India, right?
Bajra, I think bajra.
Exactly, yeah. Bajra, ragi. So these are the traditional, the reason I said this.
Maida. So in India, the refined flour, or it's basically called maida, which is used to make puras and everything. So I think they
exactly. So remember, before we went live, Dr. Gupta, and we were talking about one thing that I want to bring back is that before the British came to India, the 70% of Indian grains were not rice. 70% of Indian grain grown by our farmers was millets. So the millet atta is available. So are you kidding me? I'm never going to tell an Indian eat roti. I will die if I can't. But we make roti with ragi and bajra. Yeah, I go to Patel Brothers here in the US. I buy those flours, and then we make roti with those flours.
And what
Yeah.
about rice? Let's talk again about rice. I mean, I love my rice. Everybody loves their rice. You're from South, you love your rice, whether it's
So
pulao, whether
absolutely.
it's biryani, whether it's
Yeah.
dal chawal.
So again, try as much as you can, especially given the current situation where we are, because most Indians are insulin resistant. It's sad. The insulin resistant in India is so bad. And then rice ends up being a simple refined carbohydrate. Right, so try to minimize, learn to eat brown rice, learn to eat the traditional lentils, and not lentils, traditional millets. I'm repeating myself, but that is my mantra, is to resort to millets instead of white rice. And I'm not saying that you should never ever eat white rice, but if you look at the amount of white rice that we eat, it's large portions. So, but on the other hand, if you eat the same dal or chawal with some spinach curry or some vegetable curry with millets, because remember, we're not even like millet flours, like millet roti, actual millet. Boil them, add some nice spices to it, add some haldi, add some other spices to it, and make them nice, spicy and tasty. You will get full so fast because you're eating the fiber in it. Right. So the question is that we talked about protein. The real question is, don't ask where my protein is, ask where your fiber is.
Got it. Yeah. So this Jason has asked on Facebook, we're getting quite a lot of questions and some activity on Facebook. He's asked us that, but Reddy, you became, would you mind sharing your noticeable changes in health KPIs after your lifestyle change, especially after you adopted veganism? It may just give an idea of how you felt different.
Okay, two things. I weigh about, well, Samir, you never saw me overweight, but I used to be about 30 pounds more than what you saw me as. When I was an intern, I was close to 108, 190 pounds. Yeah, now I weigh 106. And the most noticeable change is that I actually run half a marathon now than when I was 40 years old. Yeah, and
because of your diet and not because of your stamina.
I think it's probably a combination, and it's probably because a combination. I'm eating healthy and I'm also training better. It's a combination, but is that I'm proud of is that I'm actually getting better as I get older. Right? Yeah, and my times. Look, I've been using the same app on my phone and my watch, especially my phone. Back then there were no Apple watches, but if you look at my timings, even 5-6 years ago, and then call me crazy, but I am thinking of something bold, that next year when I turn 51, I am planning to run 51 kilometers.
Wow.
Yeah.
More than a marathon.
Training for, and on top of that, another fast is that in terms of blood work. So my cholesterol numbers were always low. I think I've never got it. I never had it tested, but I think I have a genetic blessing. I think from a point of view, my cholesterol has always been extremely low. But on a plant-based diet, it went down even another further 10 points. My LDL is now 47 without any treatment.
And Dr. Reddy, one more thing. You've talked so much about plant-based diet. In the end, can you just give one or two stories and examples of patients whom you have treated personally and how they have been able to come off medicines? We've talked about it at a personal level, but I think it'll be important for everyone to hear this.
So what we have done, again, anecdotes are, they don't get ranked very high in the scientific literature, but they mean something because we live off of stories.
Yes.
Right? Entire human experience is a story. Right. Yes. So that's why so that's the whole idea of sharing them, not that this is how medicine works or this is how research works. So I have literally countless number of stories. Of one of the best story that I've ever heard was a man who came to me to my clinic because he was sent by a colleague of mine. By that, he's about 62, 63 years old. Then when I first met him, this was 4 years ago, and he has already had 2 bypass operations. Not one, but he had twice. His chest was cut open twice, and he had multiple stents. He was a diabetic, and he was on blood pressure medications. So, and but yet he was still having chest pain. So he was sent to me to review the patient and to do another heart catheterization. So when I reviewed all the prior medical records and I held his hand, I said, what do you want us to do? Do you think there is something that we deprived you off of? The contemporary best of the medical therapy, the best of stenting, the best of cardiovascular surgery, everything that we spent, God knows how many years training, we offered it to you. And you are compliant with all the medications. He's not a guy who's not compliant. He's compliant. He's taking his medication. So what I told him was, look, in the time that I'm going to spend with you explaining this, if you're on the table draped and prepped, I would be done with the heart catheterization.
Right.
That's the easy part. But before we go there, I want you to go home and try something. So now at the VA hospital where I work at, I have a 22-page booklet that the VA designed and we hand it to our patients. I said, hey, go home, empower yourself, watch a couple of documentaries, read a book, download a couple of recipes, try something different. And this man, by the way, is very, I'm putting this in the space because this is applicable, although he is a retired US veteran, but the social situation may actually be applicable for an Indian audience also. Because he lives on a very limited income. He doesn't have, very limited, just basic retirement money. So what he decided was, he took my word completely to heart and completely revamped his diet. And he would come with pictures like this. Let me show it to you. I think I posted, and this is not his, but he would actually have a similar thing on his phone, and he would show it to me. Where is it? Look, my patients would come. I don't know how well you can see this. My patients would come and show me pictures like this of the food that they're eating. This is what we're doing. Yeah, it's all, see how much green, it's all green leafy vegetables and lentils and beans. So this guy literally came off every single medication. He was on 11 medications. Right now he's only on a baby aspirin and a statin because he has had heart disease. No matter how healthy he becomes, I'm not going to take him off of his statin. That's it. And now from not being able to walk within the house to the mailbox, this guy now rides about 10 to 15 miles of his bicycle every single day.
Wow.
All by diet.
That's actually, I'm glad you asked that question. He did not make any other changes to his lifestyle. Only thing he wanted to do was get back to being physically active. But every time he did something, he was having chest pain. I said, only thing, honest of course, yeah, that person changed. Only thing he changed was diet. How about this? Another great story. This happened about, I want to say about a month ago. This man, I never met him because of COVID. Because of COVID, we're doing now something called as electronic consults. There's something that a doctor feels that something that can be answered by a cardiologist just by reviewing the chart. So I was asked to review a chart of a man, you ready for this, whose triglycerides was 4,000 plus.
4,000.
Right? The normal for the non-medical.
Normal triglycerides are up to 150, 200 max.
Yeah. So I was just concerned. So, and again, the reason I'm bringing this up is that high triglycerides is rampant in India, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it is rampant in India. And high triglycerides are it's a huge risk factor. So this man, I talked to him and I said, look, and he was also asking me for a newly approved medication called, Vasipa. So I said to him, look, we will get you this medication, but I am curious. You should be curious. Let's try something different. And he's eating a lot of junk food. He's eating pastas, pizzas, white bread, sugar, all kinds of ice creams. So what I reasoned with him, I suggested, hey, can you go on an unprocessed plant-based diet? He was honest with me. He said, doctor, hell no, it's not going to work for me. I cannot live without eating my meat I said, how about this? Just 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I want you and myself to find out how much of this is a genetic component. And he laughed at me, doc. I tried all kinds of things for 22 years. Nothing worked. It's genetic. Give me the damn medication. I said, okay, fine. I'll process the medication in 3 weeks, but I just really sincerely want you to try. So after a long discussion, I was able to convince him. But as a promise, what I did with him, I will call you every third day to check up on you, to see how are you doing, because this is going to be a struggle for you because you're used to a certain way of doing. And we did. I called him every third day and I repeated his lipid profile exactly 4th week from the day of conversation. His triglycerides fell 1,793 points.
Wow.
But the reason I'm sharing this story is for two reasons: as to what is the power of a lifestyle change, two, also how difficult it is for a lot of people. You know what he said to me on the phone? Doc, thank you for showing this to me, but I cannot eat like this. This is just not me. I'm going to be, yes, my numbers are good, but I'm miserable.
Yeah.
Because I'm missing my meat. I said, look, I'm not going to fight you with that. My job is to show you what is possible, because I'm not calling you every third day for the rest of your life for sure. So I'm sure, but the reason I'm bringing this up is, don't think that I'm sitting here and lecturing to the audience that these are difficult. These changes are difficult. Like stenting in the cath lab is easy. Dr. Gupta and I could have done, a whole bunch of stents in the time we spent talking to you, right? But that's the easy part, is to making undoing a lifetime worth of habits is hard, right? And also being non-judgmental, and also don't strive for perfection. Be an open book, be open to ideas, try something, accept failure, it's okay, right? It's okay, but find that medium and gradually build on it, right? And some of you may listen to something like this, do your own research, and completely change all aspects of your lifestyle next week and be the healthiest person. And some people may try to do that and they fall on their face because it is not their approach. So don't take it as an all or none approach. Make some changes. And the reason I spend a lot of time on diet is because it is something that is literally in our hands. That's something that you can actually change the next meal. You're not going to have 6 packs as much as you want tomorrow morning, but tomorrow morning you can change your diet. Tonight you can decide to turn the TV off at 9 o'clock and not be up until 3 o'clock in the morning watching reruns of whatever. So things that can be done, take a quick action. So yeah, any other questions?
I think this is great. Thank you so much, Dr. Reddy. Thank you so much for taking out time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Thanks for having this. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for hosting me. Keep up the good work, both of you. I follow you guys on social media and Facebook, and I love talking to you from time to time. But maybe when the COVID settles, next time I come, maybe I should come visit you guys in Delhi.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. And if you want to share any of your the booklet that you've given out, we can share that for Voice of Health also.
Sure, I'll email that to you.
Yeah, and then we can share that on Voice of Health.
I'm actually going. It's the second version. I'm actually coming out with the third edition. Once that is done, I'm going to send you the new one in about a couple of months. So that it's going to be like hopefully ready by the end of this year. Then we're completely updating the booklet. Once I have it, I'll email it to you. You can share it.
Thank you. I think we'll discuss it with our team, but I think we should do a Voice of Health plant-based diet challenge. I think for 3 weeks.
We did that. My wife and I did this a few years ago. We created a Facebook group called Determinators, and the challenge was that no processed sugars, no processed carbohydrates, and predominantly we did not demand that everybody, but predominantly or exclusively a plant-based diet, and a minimum of 30 minutes of cardio every day. And you have to post a picture of every meal and end of every workout session. So we did that in 2014, 2015, and 2016. And then, we got very busy with our kids, and we still, and when I go through those 3 years worth of, basically we call the Determinators 1, 2, and 3. And the amount of dialogue, amount of recipes, amount of, emotions and the amount of weight loss, and the amount of medications that people, and some of these people are not even, we don't even know them in our real life. These are just Facebook contacts. And that would be an amazing thing. You guys could do it in India, is to call it a challenge, accept guests. It's going to be time consuming, and make it interactive, that they have to share a picture of every meal, and they have to share a picture of their end of their workout. Then they're in a treadmill, Garmin, or whatever, wearables that they have to track, a minimum of 30 minutes. And it becomes such an amazing interactive group. And then after, 1 week or 2 weeks of invitation, make it a closed group. And then the internal dialogue, and both of you as physicians, you can moderate it. And it will be such an amazing interaction for the community to do that, because.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, guys. Take care. Okay, good luck. Okay, take care, and best to you, and great health to everyone. And please stay safe from the whole COVID. hopefully, 2020 will disappear soon.
Yes, we all hope. I really hope for that.
Almost like, it's almost like, delete it and re-download 2020 kind of thing.
And get ready.
But anyway, thanks for the opportunity and thanks for the time. Take care. Bless.
Bye bye.